Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Hey, welcome to another Wednesday Wisdom. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so grateful you're here. If you are a repeat, hey, welcome back. I am so thankful that you decided to spend your next couple of minutes with me. So a couple months ago, my coach said to me, he said, in one of our sessions, he said, Sue, he's like, you have got to calm the F down. He said, you are running at such a high level. He said, you just keep going and going. He's like, you have got to be exhausted. And after he said that, I said to him, I said, well, I do live life with urgency. That's why I do what I do. And I'm running at such a high level. And, I started thinking a little bit more about living life with urgency and always being on. It's just what I do. I enjoy it. It motivates me. That's just, it's just what I operate at. But every once in a while, I do slow down. I do meditate, in the mornings, and I do take some time out for myself. But as I pondered this more, this living life with urgency, I realized that you're really not supposed to live that way, because what I realized with living with urgency is that I was missing the purpose of life while I was doing it. And, if you live life without purpose, then you're just going to wander through life and you're just going to go from one thing to the next to the next. But what I've seen in my own life in living with urgency is that you think you're getting somewhere, but you never really do. You never really arrive anywhere. And for me personally, I didn't really accomplish, at least I didn't feel like I accomplished much. And then I dug a little bit more and I said, okay, well, why am I living this life with urgency? And I think it's really important from time to time to ask ourselves that why question. Why are you doing something? So I was thinking about, why do I live life with urgency? And one of the things that coaching has brought out for me, one of the things that my coach has helped me to see, and this is through story work, is I went back into my childhood stories and I started to unpack them to see what was going on in there. And I realized that because of my experiences when I was a child, and I'm talking about in the 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old range, that I would have things happen to me that would come out of nowhere, and I wouldn't know how to deal with them. And so as I got older, I had this idea that things were going to go away or they were going to disappear on me. So I had to live my life with urgency in the day, like right this day to day, because I don't know if I'm going to get tomorrow. Now, I realized, well, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. Okay, so that's, we don't know when our number is up, when we're going to be called, when we're going to die. We don't know. And so, a lot of times we live like we're going to live forever and we'll just put it off and we'll do it tomorrow. And then sometimes we realize, well, let me do this today because I might not get tomorrow. So it's finding a balance between the two, right? It was incredibly freeing for me that once I realized that I don't have to live life with urgency, instead, living life with purpose was far better. Now, one of the things my coach said to me, he said, what if you take the timeline off of the things that you want to do? And if I take the timeline off of them, then believe it or not, it removed the urgency. Still gave me the purpose, but removed the urgency. Now, let me add the qualifier on that, because we've all heard about SMART goals, where we set time-bounded goals and we have to aim for something and, we work towards that goal that we have. That's not what I'm talking about, because we do need those. If you don't have those goals, you can't move forward in life. I get that. No, what he was talking about is that you continue to set those goals for yourself, but you don't put a timeline on how those goals play out in your life. In other words, you don't know where they're going to go. So for example, like my podcast, I started my podcast in January 2023. At the time of this recording, it's February 15th, 2024. And, I had no idea where my podcast was going to go. I had no idea the guests that I was going to meet. I had no idea of the opportunities that were going to come out of it. But every day or whenever I recorded, I showed up. And every Sunday, there was always an episode released, so I just kept going at it. So I had a goal in mind. But when I take the timeline off of the expectation of where the podcast is going to go, then I let go of this urgency to have to produce or to do or to force something to happen. Instead, it's just creating something with purpose. Okay, so there's a difference between living life with urgency and living life with purpose. If I remove the urgency, but I keep the purpose. Another thing that my coach had said to me, he said, Sue, he said, instead of living life with urgency, why don't you take where you're at and look at it with a different time horizon? So I said, what do you mean? He said, well, instead of looking at something like you're going to accomplish it in 2 or 3 years, why don't you take a 40-year perspective on it? What if I live for another 30 or 40 years? What can you accomplish? A whole lot, actually. And, do this exercise for yourself. Take where you are right now, whether you're 22, whether you're 32, whether you're 42 or 52, take where you are right now and then go back 10, 20, 30 years, however far back you want to go, and look at all the things that you did in that time frame. And when you look at it and you look at your accomplishments and you go back and you're like, holy crap, I got a lot done in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Just go back a year if you don't even want to do that. But if you look at where you were 10 years ago, and then play it out and say, geez, I'm going to be in a different place 10 years from now. So where you get 10 years from now is dependent on what you do today. It is not dependent on who you were in the past. Now, there are decisions that we made in the past that affect our future and where we go from here. Yeah, that's true. But you have this moment right now to craft and orchestrate a compelling future version of yourself, especially if you don't like where you are right now. Another thing to think about is, okay, I hear you listening to me and you're like, okay, I don't want to live life with urgency anymore. I need to live life with purpose. But, what if I don't get tomorrow? How do I live today in its fullest? And I think that's an excellent question. I interviewed a guy by the name of Brian Johnson, and he has a fantastic program called Heroic, and he wrote a book called Arete. And the word Arete means living life with virtuous wisdom. And the whole purpose, the whole crux of Arete is to live your life today in the best version of yourself and show up today. You don't know if you get tomorrow, but if you showed up in your best version today, then at least you know you have lived life in your urgency for today. All right, so just doing the best that you can right where you are. For me, once I let go of the urgency, I embraced my purpose and then show up in the best version of myself every day to the best of my ability and live with Arete, then that sense of urgency has basically, for me personally, has dissipated. I don't really have it anymore. I still have the energy, I still have the drive, I still have the purpose, but I don't have that urgency that, let's see how I could explain it. It's more like a wet blanket or a gloomy cloud that's over you when you have that urgency. Instead, when you have that life with purpose, or you just live in the best moment of who you can be for the day, then it's something that's definitely positive. It's definitely giving off positive vibes, resonating at a higher frequency. If you want to go there, I do believe in the law of attraction. I think it's really cool. When you are positive, full of joy, radiating, then you attract those things into your life. When you are negative, critical, down, judgmental, sad, depressed, you also attract those things in your life too, but they resonate at a lower frequency. All right, so that's what I'm looking at. So like I said, I realized that life would be so much easier if I did not put it on a timeline. on what I was trying to accomplish, but instead set my goals each day and then allow the opportunities to unfold as life plays out. So what are your small steps? Well, here's my suggestion. Remove the urgency from whatever it is that you are attaching urgency to and live in the now. Take out the timeline of when you want something that you think you should be somewhere in an X amount of time, right? And then just allow things to play out. I'm not saying remove your goals. Go for those goals, still set them, but just remove the definitive timeline that you're looking at. Also, embrace the moment. You only get this moment and then you have the next moment. Learn to live in the moment that you have in front of you, but also look to the future and embrace that as well. The other thing is realize that it takes time to build anything. One of my most favorite quotes ever is, "It takes 10 years to be an overnight success." So I've heard it many, many times. It didn't sink in until about the 10th time I heard it. Remember, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. It takes a while to build something. Now, can you build something relatively quickly? Maybe in 6 months? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But it just depends on what it is that you're building. And maybe it'll go overnight and maybe it won't. But you just have to embrace the fact that, things take time to build. Well, I hope you got some value out of this. If you did, please pass it on to a friend. I would really greatly appreciate that. If you haven't left a 5-star review, please do that. It only takes a second for you to hit those 5 stars. I would appreciate it. And as always, friends, go make today awesome. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, check out my website, personalcoachfinder.com, and find someone who can help. Remember, life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by choice. Take small steps today and make your life awesome, friends.